Welcome back to Radio Taiwan International. You're listening to Geek Out. What's your cup of tea, tickles your fancy, or floats your boat? Join us as we share passions from people in Taiwan and around the world. I'm your host, Michelle Chang, and today, again in the studio, are Anna and Helen.
Hello.
Hi. They're back to, well, their previous episode was about friendship, and it's actually so wholesome. I love it. What are we geeking about this episode?
Bit of traveling, right?
Yes. Yeah, we kind of dropped a trailer in the previous one about traveling together as friends, which is its own beast.
Oh yeah, compatible traveling, as we like to call it.
Absolutely, compatible traveling. Well, first off, you're in Taiwan now, but where did you start?
So we started in Hanoi, so northern Vietnam.
No. Where'd you take off from?
We flew out from San Francisco.
Okay. So SFO to Hanoi.
Yes.
And then Hanoi to...
Then we went to central Vietnam and did a couple, we went to Hue and, very, very quickly.
Hoi An and...
Yeah. And then I think we went down to Saigon. And then we did a little excursion to Cambodia, so Siem Reap. And then we went to Singapore. Mm-hmm. And then we went to Thailand, so we went to Phuket first, and then we worked our way up Thailand. So
I love this. Okay.
We went to Bangkok,
Chiang Mai in the north,
and then we got in here yesterday, and this is kind of we kind of completed the loop.
Oh, I love this so much.
And then I'm going back to San Francisco.
Yeah, and I go on to Germany in a couple.
Oh, okay. So Taipei is your last Asia stop.
Yes.
Oh, well, we're honored, I guess.
Our beautiful conclusion.
Yay! So how long has this trip been?
A month. Pretty exactly a month. Yeah.
Generally speaking, the only opportunity people have to take a month-long trip is rare. It's usually in between jobs. In your case, it is after you've graduated from university.
Yes, it's the grad trip, the infamous grad trip that people take when they're, still unemployed and don't have a college to do things or internships or something like that.
But congratulations.
Thank you.
That is a momentous occasion. I'm glad you guys are celebrating with a trip.
Long time coming, I guess. Extra year, 5 years of college.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a trip like this, a month of traveling through Asia and then on to Germany or where you're going, takes a lot of planning. How long in advance did you start?
Okay.
Wow.
So to clarify, the first 2 weeks, so that was Vietnam through Singapore, we traveled with my parents because, we came up with the idea. We were like, we want to go to Southeast Asia. And my parents were like, great summer trip. We'll join you for the first 2 weeks and then we'll go on to Bali. And you guys can do whatever you want after that.
Okay.
So they did do the planning for the first 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we kind of
just crashed.
We crashed.
Really crashed.
Oh, I love it. Though.
And then for the rest of the trip, I think I booked the flights, the main flights between each place decently early. I would say I started in January.
Good.
To get some cheaper flights.
Yes.
And then I think we both started to get busy with school and with our thesis.
Well, yeah, it was the last semester of college.
A little bit later, we booked the hostels that we were staying at. So then we were like, okay, we have the flights, we have the hostels, and then all the other plans. Literally, 2 weeks, a week before we left.
I think I booked some things 2 days in advance.
I came over to our house, and then we were just like, okay, we got to book everything.
Yes.
And
Well, that's actually about the right order of things that you should be booking things, because as soon as flights are announced as available, about that time is pretty reliably inexpensive. It's good that you started early. That's about how I started too, 6 months ahead of time. Yeah. And although this is really not the norm for people, I've found people when I ask, do you want to join the trip? They're like, what?
I'm like, it's in 2 days, but it works out, I guess. I mean, we definitely procrastinated everything else after we felt like we were yep, at least we have our flight there, and then we'll just wing it after that.
I saying 2 weeks before we left, or 2 days before we left, planning stuff was really 2 weeks and plus 2 days before we actually started doing this stuff we had planned.
Because your parents had done the first 2 weeks.
So.
Yeah, which is nice. That was definitely took off a lot of the work, to be fair.
It sounds like the correct mixture of planning and flying by the seat of your pants.
We talked about how like we definitely planned different parts of. We switched off with who planned what city a little bit more, and based on like what the place was. Like I think mine was more the outdoorsy nature, animals, like things I nerd out about.
I want to touch on this because you guys are very different.
Yeah.
In appearance, listeners, you can't see them, but they have very different style. And then through the friendship episode, we were talking about how you guys came from maybe different cliques in school. Basically, just wound up friends. Somehow.
Yeah.
The unexpected duo.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, culturally different. We're like, we geek out about different things, different interests, different majors, but somehow it works out.
I think it's interesting because it's like, we're from like culturally different, but like we both are like mixed. So it's like, there are different cultures in our background.
That goes a long ways to friendship. You can relate to the other in life experience. So.
Yeah, and like different life experiences. And it worked out because, there are certain cities, like we went to Phuket and then Chiang Mai, which is kind of up north, more in like, I guess you could say the mountains, as mountainy as it gets.
So Anna did most of the nature, flora, fauna type planning.
Oceans.
Oh, yes, that's my jam. Many, listeners know it's my jam. I've done so many episodes on like scuba diving and stuff.
I scuba dive. I'm such a nerd.
We're going to touch on this when we go eat dinner later. Absolutely. And then Helen did cultural, temples, markets, that kind of thing.
Yeah, food, like all the city stuff. So I did Bangkok and I am currently in Taipei.
She's in charge.
Yeah, I'm in charge here.
I've just been following around like a little duck.
And like I think because it's where both of our interests are, we both get really excited when we like land in that location. Like Chiang Mai, Anna was really excited about the elephants. It was like, I'm gonna find the perfect elephant like tour that's like ethical.
Yes.
And like
Thank you for doing that, because there is a lot of unethical stuff when we're talking about animals.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning. I do want to talk about each step of the way, including, I guess, the 2 weeks that your parents were with you. Vietnam to Singapore. Okay, I think we all know what traveling with parents is like if you have traveled. It can be interesting.
That's true. That's true. I felt like I was the buffer because it was like, otherwise if it was just you and your parents, who knows?
Who knows what we're about.
Yeah, exactly.
My parents are very, when it comes to traveling, very like we're only here for a certain amount of days. We gotta fit in like all this stuff.
Oh, so they're very active.
Very active. Like we were, for a couple of things, we were waking up at 4 a.m. before things got hot to go see the sunrise, to go outside and like before the sun came out, just so we wouldn't, because it gets really hot.
Oh yeah. You're traveling Southeast Asia in the summertime is the off-peak season because it's very hot and the monsoon rains are insane. Even though they're only what, like 40 minutes of a shower.
And we actually learned that slightly the other day when we went to the highest point in Thailand, like the national park, and we went from like, wow, it's really warm outside, to like 10 minutes later we were like getting like rained on and like sitting in the back of this like tuk-tuk, like struggling with the winds. Like, it was really funny.
Yeah.
Sounds like an adventure though.
It was. Yeah, it definitely was.
I think we were in central Vietnam, and our tour guide, we had a tour guide, and she was asking us how we wanted to do the tour the next day. And she was saying we had two options. There's like, we could do a biking tour and we can go on bikes and bike around the city. And I'm not sure if you've seen the traffic in like when people do an unprotected left turn, they just go.
Or lanes, those are usually
it's kind of like how birds flock. Have you ever seen like starling murmurations? Yeah. Or how fish school, really each fish is paying attention to 90 degrees of their field of vision in front of them. But here's what it is. If every single fish does it, then there are no collisions.
Yep. So we just had to
I think that's how it works.
So that was one option. The other option was this like tricycle where like there was like someone who you would hire and they would like bike and you'd sit in the little like tricycle.
Oh, so luxurious.
And my parents heard this and they were like, obviously the bikes. Like, we're not going to be like driven around. Like, we're going to bike. And the tour guide, you could see she was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to bike in this heat with this family.
Her face.
And there was this like there were a couple other families that were kind of following the same route. So we kept running into them. Yeah. And they were, for the most part, like they were two other American families. And it was funny because we noticed that the other two families did the tricycle tour. So they got driven around. And so then the joke, we love them. They were great. Don't worry. But it was funny because the joke was a little bit like, a tricycle family versus a bicycle family, of like distinguishing between, you know, the tourists that are a little bit more like, no, we're gonna be active, we're gonna, you know,
that's so
do
cute.
it this way, or be more adventurous, like we want to see it like the locals see it, versus like, you know, we're gonna do it a little more, you know, touristy. Yeah, exactly. And so we started, as we traveled, we would kind of keep track and
like
see
they
like,
look like a bicycle
they
family,
look like a
or they look like a tricycle family.
I love it. That's adorable. That's actually very accurate on describing how people travel, because there are bicycle travelers and there are tricycle travelers.
Yeah, and that's where the compatibility part comes in, you know, like that's, we both come from very much so bicycle families.
Yes.
So it worked out in that sense, because it wasn't like, this is not going to work out.
Just to clarify, I am tricycle.
And we love that.
And we support you in that, you know, there have to be tricycle families.
Yeah, of course. Everybody has, you know, their own way of doing stuff.
Yeah.
So. But I'm glad that you were very compatible in that.
Yeah. I think you had to be after the bicycling that we did do around the cities. And
it was so hot.
It was
I'm sorry, your poor tour guy.
I know. It was funny because she was like, bicycle, like the tricycles are like this, and we're like, no, yeah, bicycle. And she was like, okay, but just so I can explain like what the tricycles look like.
It's like, if you do bicycle, you know, you're like pedaling, and
you are pedaling.
And your parents were like, obviously we're bicycling.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your parents they try to squeeze in a bunch of activities into their time that they're there. Mm-hmm. Hectic, sounds like.
Yes.
We were so tired.
Yeah.
We like landed, because Phuket was our first stop. Like without them, we landed there. We were like, oh my god, we need to lay down. So like horizontal.
Yeah.
Find a beach. Just like starfish on the beach for a minute.
We just like walked along the beach. We're like, what should we do now? Like the world is really our oyster. Like there's no plan, no set like thing we had to do.
Yeah, I was there in December, and I'm actually headed there again in November.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
So just some beach vacation.
Yeah, well, I scuba dive as you do, and
I didn't get to scuba dive.
And Thailand, in the summer, actually, the Similan Island National Park is closed. The government does a great job at preserving nature. We'll talk about that later at lunchtime or dinner time. Phuket is a jump off point for a lot of that kind of water sport activity type vacation. So that's why I was there anyway.
Cool. I mean, yeah, when we did go snorkeling, even in like kind of the high density boats that take like 10 million tourists to go look at the reefs, it was funny because even those reefs, I was like, these look pretty good.
They're very healthy.
You know, and I've done a lot of scuba diving in the Caribbean and then on the Pacific coast, and I was like, these look really, especially for how many tourists there are here, they look a lot better than a lot of the reefs I've seen, which was fun.
Which is interesting.
I know.
Like, why? Why is it so healthy out here? Well, I'm gonna say something that might be a little controversial, but I think it's the percentage of tourists coming from different countries. There are, I think, more eco-conscious people visiting that particular location than others.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you know, Puerto Rico's a spring break destination, so that can do some harm at times.
Right? Just the thought of like what kind of sunscreen should I buy?
Yes.
Is kind of a big decision if you're going to a place that has marine life. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, we're getting off track.
We're nerding out a little bit on this.
We're kicking out about that. But yeah, did you enjoy the culture of Phuket? It's it's like a party island.
Yeah, and I think this is also where we're a little different. So Anna's much more extroverted, just in every sense, than I am. I think I'm very introverted, and I think that was good because we alternated which city we planned.
Yeah.
I think that also alternated like where we stayed, and like
we were just laughing about this because accidentally, like, I didn't even look for social hostels. Like, I wasn't looking for the party hostels because I didn't even know that some of these hostels were party hostels. But just by like what we look for, just like who we are, I accidentally booked in like Phuket and in Chiang Mai. I booked like the really social like party hostels.
Like they have activities and they want you to like talk to people. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh my god,
no, I don't want to talk to anyone.
And I think like because of that in Phuket, we came up with this deal for the rest of our for the 2 weeks that we'd be traveling alone. And the deal was that I would make all the decisions in turn because we're both a little indecisive, but Anna's much more indecisive than me.
Major decision anxiety.
Like I would decide where we were going. If we were debating between like two activities, I would decide which one. And of course she would speak up if like she didn't agree. Yeah. But like in theory, I was given the decision power as long as Anna would talk to everyone. Like, I wouldn't have to, like, ask for directions. I wouldn't have to, like, if we had a tour guide, like, I didn't have to talk to because I didn't want to talk to people or, like, strangers.
This is the beauty of traveling in a compatible friendship, because you can share responsibilities to fit your comfort level.
And I get stressed out when I have to choose, like, even where we're going to dinner. Like, I can't do it. I'm so bad at that. And so, in every stop it was like, okay, we'll do this for dinner, or we'll get this off the menu, or we'll do this. I was like, perfect, I'll order it, or I'll talk to our tour guide, or I'll converse with this person, but you choose. Yeah, exactly. And it worked out really well for us.
Yay!
So far. Yeah. I mean, we're almost done, so. But yeah.
So you've made it all the way up to Taipei. Any adventures or weird stuff that has happened?
There's a
if you start laughing, that means something happened.
Well, we have this one story that we like to tell, that we had this really interesting tour guide in Bangkok.
We love him so much.
I love Bangkok. First of all,
great.
It's such a vibrant, energetic city.
Oh, yeah.
And it has developed leaps and bounds over I think the first time I was there was like 25 years ago. It's a great place.
Quickly, yeah.
It's a great place to visit.
Yeah, we just had quite the funny. It was a food tour that we went on.
To be clear, we booked because this is not with my parents, so we were doing group tours, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it was a little cheaper, and yet for this food tour, I think just based on who books when, and it is off season, we were the only two people who showed up.
Yeah, sometimes that's how it goes.
Yeah,
and this tour guide, well, you can start.
Well, it's just funny because we were just convinced that our tour guide is in some type of secret service for some country. We were kind of maybe CIA for the US. This man is special ops somewhere.
Because he would, in a very normal way, he would keep telling us these random facts about his life, and we were like, there's no way this is all true.
So
weird random facts, wild stuff.
And every friend that we told this to, the first thing that they would say was guys, he was just pulling your leg. We were like, no, you don't understand. He was telling it to us it was a walk in the park that he took. It was just so normal to him. That's not something you lie about. It was just not a joke.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So I think we'll start with more mundane. So he studied Russian in college, and then got a scholarship to go live in Russia.
So far believable.
He's a tour guide. He likes to travel. He was also saying he liked to travel a lot. And then later on, he's like, I was a monk for a month. And we were like, oh, that's really interesting.
Okay.
He was like, yeah, I took time off from my work to go be a monk. So then we were like, oh, work like a tour guide? Or do you have another job? He's like, oh, I have another job.
He was like, I'm a soldier. What?
And then he was like, a soldier by day, a tour guide by night. And we were like, oh, that's pretty cool.
That's so unique. And he was like, yeah, my Russian is actually the main language, and we thought that makes sense for tourism, he probably
a lot of Russian tourists,
tourists. Yeah. And then however, he was also a soldier for the army, and by night was a tour guide.
He moonlit as a tour guide,
and then he took a month off to be a monk, but not what he called a city monk where you can have a phone. He said he was it was a pure monk where you go into the jungle for a month and you no electronics, one meal a day.
Yeah, and then he's got so much life experience. So he told us just a bunch of crazy stories about where he would travel to, and he'd been to every country that we'd listed in Southeast Asia, and he was telling us just kind of crazy travel stories of one time he was traveling in China and he accidentally booked his return flight a month later, which didn't he didn't have technically the allowance to stay that long, so he had to figure out a way to get back. He didn't have enough money to get back, and he was I was ready to sell my phone and all these things to get back. He was basically stuck and lost in China
and didn't speak any Mandarin.
And didn't speak Mandarin
until he met a Thai monk who helped him get back. So there were just crazy stories, and then the cherry on top was at the very end. He pulls out his second cell phone. He was
my friend gave it to me.
My friend gave it to me. I use it because my other phone ran out of storage and I like to take pictures. And we were like, oh my God.
People at every restaurant for this tour that stopped would give him a look because he was 6'3", really tall guy. He was super
really tall
tan,
Thai dude.
Yeah, super
big
tall
though.
and buff. Ripped. When he said soldier, I was I'm almost not that surprised, but at the same time, this man has got to be special ops or something.
Oh, I would lay money on that as well. That maybe he's special ops. Well, that's part of traveling. It's you meet some
pretty interesting people.
Really interesting people.
So fun.
Man, shout out to you if you recognize yourself from this podcast.
Yeah, if you're listening, you were great, and I hope that whatever your side gig is that you're doing, it's going well.
Absolutely. Please be successful. Yeah. Anything else interesting happened to you in your journeys?
It's our first big trip, just the two of us, not as many people around, and I feel
our favorite part was just witnessing like all the different kinds of tourists that you can experience.
Yes.
We're both from like San Francisco Bay Area, and I think, there's a lot of tourists there for sure, but it's like here there's just like a collection of like we noticed that it's like mostly British and Australian tourists at like, especially in these like party hostels for the most part, like they're definitely like British and Australian. Interesting characters that you'll meet, just like so funny. Like as tourists, they're just like super different from like the tourists you'll see in other countries, and it's just been some pretty funny people that we've like gotten to interact with, and we always have to debrief it after. We're like, wow, so were you hearing the same thing I was hearing? Like, I'm so confused, or like that was hilarious, or something like that, which has been really fun. It's just like the people that you meet, or like the tourists that you meet, honestly have been entertaining.
Yes, it's not just about the locations, but the people you meet in said location, especially your tour guides who are taking you around and you talk to a lot. It's wild.
Yeah, and they have some stories. I mean, way more than we do. Like they have stories.
They work in the
tourists.
profession.
Yeah, exactly.
So for listeners who may be contemplating, should they take like a month-long trip around someplace, any advice?
I was gonna say, you get really good at like packing your items at the end. So like always be ready for something new. I think if you get too settled in a place, then like every time you move, especially because we spent like 3 or 4 days in each city, I think by the end we got used to kind of being like settled enough that it was relaxing to come back to the hostel or the hotel, but like, not too settled where every time you picked up your stuff you were like, oh, like the next place. Like we were usually excited for the next stop rather than being like, we're moving too much or something like that, which is something you definitely have to like adjust for, I think, as you go.
Packing is definitely a thing. Pack half the things you think you're going to need and then have that again.
And I think also it was good that we prioritized where we were going to stay and when we were going to leave each place. Even though I think I was very stressed out going into it, like not having activities planned every day, because Anna like met up with some friends in some places just that happened to overlap. Like just being flexible with the time and booking things even if it was a little later made it feel like we were, I don't know, I feel
able
like
to be spontaneous.
Yeah, and like things change over the course of a month of like what we were interested in doing in each city and like how we were feeling after traveling for weeks.
Yeah, transportation and accommodations, very important to get those nailed down.
Yeah,
but
the rest is kind of, you'll figure out, even things that you do want to have like tours booked, you can do that. I think we met travelers that were like, yeah, I don't know when I'm going to my next city or where I'm going next. And like, it works for some people, but I think for us, like having kind of a set like structure, just like a backbone, really like a skeleton, and then we could fill in the pieces as we went was like really good
nice
for
balance.
us.
yeah.
And also, I think the biggest thing that we noticed was just like have a flexible mindset about like things you want to try, like the people you're going to meet, even beyond food, but especially food, just like be open to trying foods, like meeting people, going to new places. I think there's certain tourists that we met that were super open to do that, and others where we were always kind of like, that's
why
kind of a
wouldn't you
bummer.
try it? Yeah, it's a
you're
bummer.
coming so far, like why not
Exactly.
let yourself experience it?
Yeah, it's all about the experiences.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for geeking out with me, guys.
Of course. Had a good time.
And thanks, listeners, for tuning in to Radio Taiwan International. I'm Michelle Chang, and we'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Geek Out. Bye.